Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we'll be taking a look at a football game, something I have not done yet as far as I can remember. This is a kind of a quick play game, but it has a nice statistical base, as we'll see here in a moment. So you won't get any individual statistics or anything like that, but you will get realistic game results at least. So the game that we're going to be playing, as you might have guessed already, is game-winning drive football. This is from Downey Games, and as I mentioned, it's a quick play game, and it's sold season by season. They have tons and tons of different seasons available, including college and pro football. So what we're going to do here is something from 1985. Now that season, of course, is famous for the Chicago Bears and their 46 defense that kind of went 15-1 in the regular season, ran roughshod over the league. Their only loss was to Pittsburgh on the road, and then in the playoffs they pitched two shutouts in the NFC playoffs and then won the Super Bowl 46-10 over the Patriots. Now the flip side of that story is the Patriots. They were the first team to win 3 road games to get to the Super Bowl, and of course the Super Bowl did not go well for them, but they had quite the accomplishment in getting to the Super Bowl, beating the Jets and then the Raiders and then the Dolphins on the road. And some of those victories involved a lot of turnovers and special teams play and things like that. And one of the more infamous ones, or famous ones if you would prefer, took place in the divisional round against the Raiders at the LA Coliseum. And that's the game we're going to be replaying here. And they won that one thanks to a late fumble on a kickoff return that they recovered in the end zone, breaking a 20-20 tie, and they ended up winning that game 27-20. And the cards we're looking at here, obviously, are the cards for the 1985 Patriots and the 1985 then Los Angeles Raiders. So this is a pretty straightforward game. Basically, you roll 4d6, and the first two, and they all need to be different colors, so you can tell them apart. And you're going to generate 2 numbers that will be between 11 and 66. If you play dice games, you're definitely familiar with this particular mechanic. So you're going to get an 11 to 66 number, and then another 11 to 66 number. So the first one, they'll apply to these ranges here for scoring, turnovers, and returns. It depends on the situation, obviously, like what you're doing. The game plays out drive by drive, hence the name. So you'll get 10 drives by each team. And now there are adjustments that will apply to these ranges based on the opponent's defensive adjustments. So you can see here, like when the Patriots have the ball, they would normally score on rolls from 11 to 31. So if you look at the Raiders' defensive adjustments here, you see scoring -1. That would make this, you might say, well, it'll be 11 to 30, but it really won't because it's a die roll thing. So you know, a 3 and a 1, if you go one lower on the ladder, it becomes a 26. So again, this isn't rocket science. If you play dice-based games, you're familiar with this. So 11 to 26, and then when we see the score sheet in a moment and I start actually playing, you'll see this in action as I'll write down all of the actual ranges. And then you'll also, of course, have to adjust the other ratings based on, so you see here you have a -1 for scoring. Touchdown run, you would take a -3, so you basically remove 3, and this becomes 24 to 31. I'm sorry, you go -3, which would make this 11 to 16, because there is no 20. So 11 to 16, and then this would start at 21 instead of 24. So basically you're trading some touchdowns for field goals. And you do the same thing with TD pass, but that does not have an adjustment, so it remains 35 to 54. So when you roll an 11 to 26 and New England has the ball, they've scored. Then you would determine what they scored, and again, based on the adjusted die roll, you would figure out what type of score it was, whether it was a touchdown run, a touchdown pass, or a field goal. Same thing for fumbles and interceptions and fourth down defense. So there is an optional rule for basically, and on your last drive, if you're within a touchdown, you're allowed to quote unquote go for it if you get a field goal result. So if you get a field goal result, you can go for it on fourth down, essentially, is what it's modeling, to try and turn that field goal into a touchdown. And so you would have an adjustment based on the opponent's defense to your scoring chance of getting a touchdown. Now, if that comes up, we'll go into it. I don't want to go over every single rule in the game. It is a very simple game. The rules are about 3 pages long, and everything is given an example. So it's very straightforward and easy to pick up. The strength of this game would be if you're doing a replay of an NFL season with another game, and you want to have quick results because this game takes, maybe 10 minutes to roll out, if or maybe even less once you really get the flow of it. Hours will probably take a little longer because I'll be talking and explaining what's going on as we go through it. But that's basically the gist of the game, and that applies to special teams and everything as well. Now, this number in brackets here, this 52 on the 11-12 for punt, that would mean that if you rolled a 12, you would roll again, and if you got a 52 or less, it would be good. Essentially, that means the result happened. So it's just a way to kind of fine-tune the chances because you have 36 potential outcomes on a 2d6 roll. And then sometimes you might want to fine-tune that. So that's just the mechanism that's used in this game to do that. So now that we've got all the preparatory stuff out of the way, let's get down to playing the game.
Okay, so we're going to get started here. So as I mentioned, we need 4 d6s. So I'll use red and blue for the first die roll, which determines kind of what happens on the drive. And then the green and the yellow will be the second roll, which will actually indicate, like, if you scored, what did you score, kind of thing. So the first thing I want to do is determine who gets the ball first. So it says home visitor, so we'll just do it that way. I was thinking it might be cool if you kind of roll the die for it and, let that determine, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So we're going to roll all 4 dice together. And our red is a 1 and the blue is a 4, so that's a 14. And so the Raiders are the home team, and on a 14, they actually score. Now, green and the yellow are a 16, so that would be a touchdown run. So you put LAR and TD run. And now we have to roll for the extra point, which their range here is at 11 to 65. And if you do roll a 65, you'd have to roll less than a 24. So I'm going to roll again, and we'll see. We'll use the red and blue, and then if we need it, we'll use the other one. So we got a 51, so that is good. So XP, good. And it is 0 to 7. So that's exactly how easy this game is. Now we'll roll again for the Patriots, and they get a 25. And a 25 is within their scoring range, and they get a 36. And that is a touchdown pass. So we go NE TD pass, and their extra point range is actually 11 to 66. And then if you do get a 6 and a 6, you need less than a 14. And they get a 33, so XP good. And we get a 7-7 start to the game. Now we continue. And we get a 25, which is again a score, and a 41, which is a TD pass for the Raiders. So a lot of scoring here in the first quarter. TD pass. Now we roll for the extra point. 43 is good, so it is 7 to 14. XP good. And on we go. See if we can get a drive that does not end in a score here. All right, so we got a 46, and a 46 is a turnover. Now, turnover does not mean fumble or interception. It can also mean a punt. So we're going to look at the green and yellow, which is a 22, and that is, in fact, a punt. So New England punt. And it remains 14-7 Raiders. And now we go to the next. And we get a 34 for the Raiders. And a 34 for the Raiders is a turnover as well. And then 26 is a punt. So the Raiders punt. And that is the end of the first quarter. With the score 14-7 Raiders. And we'll continue on. We get a 53 and a 64. So a 53 for the Patriots is a turnover, and a 64 is a punt. So you see there's two punt ranges, kind of like this with the touchdown and the field goal. So you can have a fumble and then a punt range and then an interception and then a punt range. And then, of course, you have field goal that was missed. So this is another punt. Still 14-7. Oh, big numbers here. 63 and 62. So a 63 for the Raiders is a turnover, and a 62 is a punt. So nothing exciting, just bigger numbers. So 4 straight punts. The defenses have apparently settled in here. 33 for the Patriots is going to be a turnover, and a 62 is going to be a punt. All right, we got 2 more possessions here before the half. 34, so that is again a turnover for the Raiders. And 61 is going to be a punt. And New England, last possession of the first half, gets a 56, so that's a turnover, and a 65, which is a punt, but almost. A 66 would have been a missed field goal. So that's the end of the first half, 14-7 Raiders. We go to the second half, and New England gets the ball first. And they get a 25, so that's going to be a score. And a 62 is a field goal. So they get a field goal, and it is now 14-10 Raiders. Now the Raiders get to go. They get a 44 and a 65. So a 44 going to be a turnover, and 65 is a missed field goal. So it stays 14-10. '25, they score again, and a 51. So 51 is going to be a touchdown pass. New England's taking the lead here. TD pass. Let's check the extra point. 35, that is good. Extra point, good. 17-14 New England here in the third quarter. 42 for the Raiders, that's a turnover. 35 is a interception. Now in this game in real life, the Raiders had 6 turnovers, I believe, if I remember correctly. That is the first turnover of the game. England, last possession of the third quarter, gets a 33, so that's a turnover, and a 56 is a punt. Oh shoot, I've been forgetting all the returns. Okay, well, I've been forgetting all the returns. So what you do in theory after this, there's a possibility for returns for touchdowns. So the interception we would have rolled, and I mean the chances are really small. You need an 11 or a 12. So let's roll for this punt return. Actually, we don't need to do that for the Raiders because their range, they don't have a range. They didn't return anything for a touchdown, punt or kick. They do have a decent interception return, but the Patriots haven't thrown a pick yet. So it's still 17-14. I'm not going to overly stress about that because honestly, the chances of it happening are pretty slim, but I'll try to do it for the rest of the game. We got an 11, so that's going to be a score for the Raiders. And a 41 is a touchdown pass. So Mark Wilson redeems himself after the pick on the last possession for the Raiders. And let's see what they get. They got a 61. And a 61 is good. So it is 21-17 LA. And now we've got, for the fourth quarter remaining, we have New England, Raiders, New England, and the Raiders. And let's see what happens. Well, let's do the kick return. Actually, they don't have a possibility to score on the kick return. All right, so we got a 33, and a 33 is going to be a turnover, and a 55 is a punt. Okay, now again, if they had a punt return range, we could roll for it. They do not, so we don't need to worry about it. It is 21-17. Now we got a 43, which is a turnover, and a 24 is a punt. So the Raiders punt. It stays 21-17. Let's roll for the punt return. If we roll an 11 or a 12 with the red and blue, we do not, so it is not a touchdown. Now we would roll for their regular possession. I apologize for screwing that up. It is a turnover. And 25 is a punt. So New England has punted. And basically the game is now over. But we'll roll it out anyway. 65 is a turnover. 55 is a punt. Or you could just say they ran out the clock. It doesn't matter. The game's over. And the Raiders win, which they did not do historically. So that is basically a game-winning drive. Aside from the kick return stuff and the pick return that I did not roll, there are some optional rules you can do, like if you roll doubles, that will add some wrinkles. You can add a little bit of complexity, essentially, is what it does. There's also the go for it on fourth down and so on and so forth. Depending on the season, you can have 2-point conversions that you can go for and things like that. As I mentioned, there are a ton of seasons for this game. I have 85 and I think 41 because I was interested in like old time football for Figment League, actually. So I wanted to see if I could use something like this to do that with. I ended up not doing that, but it was definitely an option. So this is, like I said, a very simple game. So let me fill this out. So at the end of the first, it was 14-7. And there was no scoring in the second. And it was 10 points for New England and none for the Raiders, then none, 7. And we ended up with a 21-17 final. And you can have overtime as well. And this being a playoff game, you can have overtime, obviously. Now, there's a game that's somewhat similar to this from Downey that's called Momentum Football. And what that does is you get a team sheet that actually has the roster on it. And it'll tell you who did what on the drive. And you'll actually generate stats. So you can generate statistics with it for your individual players. And I have the 85 season for that. So I do plan on doing a video of that game as well. So you can see you could pair them together pretty easily. And if you had your favorite team or whatever, and you just wanted to, for 85, let's say you're a Bears fan and you want to relive the glory days of the Ditka era and the 46 defense and, Jim McMahon and Peyton and all that good stuff. You can do that and then have, game-winning drive, maybe do the rest of the league. Or if you wanted to play, in 2 teams or 3 teams or whatever, with as many teams as are in the NFL, most modern seasons, it might be an easier way to complete a season replay. If you're not super concerned about stats, you can use Momentum Football and do everything and have all the stats if you wish to. So I will be doing that game at some point in the future. I don't know when. I already have another sports game lined up for next week. So it could be right after that, or it won't be too far in the future, most likely. And then once football season itself rolls around again in the fall, I will probably do something from second season, since I have that as well. But for now, that's going to do it. I do appreciate you guys taking time to watch, as always. It's Saturday, and that's Sports Saturday here on Hexed and Countered. I'm Joe. That's going to do it for now. Please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. Feel free to comment. But until next time, happy gaming.